Hi everyone, it's been a long time coming, but I'm back, and what better event to break down than the Pokemon European International Championships. I had an amazing time, but this isn't about me, it's about the decks, the plays, and the champions, so let's jump right into it. So before EUIC, there were two major events, Merida Regionals in Mexico and the Puerto Rico Special Championships, which gave us our first look at the Prismatic Evolutions meta. At Merida Regionals, the big three, Dragapult EX, Dusknoir, Gardevoir EX, and Lugia V-Star were expected to define the format. Dragapult did lead the meta with 18.6% of the meta share, but it was surprisingly Miraidon which took Azul Garcia Griego all the way to a championship win, defeating another surprise in Gouging Fire EX in the finals. 1 week later in Puerto Rico, Miraidon's dominance continued. 25% of Day 2 players actually ran the deck. But in the finals, it was Christian Solis, the last Puerto Rican standing, who took down Vincent Owens' Archaludon EX to keep the title at home. With Miraidon suddenly becoming a serious threat, all eyes were on EUIC to see how the meta would actually adapt. So for EUIC, once again, it was in London, the United Kingdom, and we once again set record attendance for a non-Asian Pokemon TCG event, with over 3,360 Masters, 327 Seniors, and 280 Juniors competing, with thousands of dollars on the line and $25,000 for the winner in the Masters division, championship points, and of course those direct Worlds invites on the line. As per usual, it meant the best players from around the world were showing up. Your casters for the weekend, Ross Gilbert, Pablo Meza, Amy Wosley, and myself, Alex Dow, alongside our host, Adam Skarzig Watson. Well, the expected meta following on from the pre-EUIC tournaments came to life and mostly was well predicted by the masses. Dragapult EX was the undeclared best deck in format, with 18.3% of all players bringing it in some form, despite it not winning either of Merida or Puerto Rico. It's because its versatility and often varied builds can give it a well-balanced time into any meta. Gardevoir, as shown on the graphic, was also at 12.3%, Miraidon shot up to just shy of 10%, whilst Lugia sort of started to fall off because of that rise. But there was a bigger drop-off to the 6th most represented deck on this graphic, which was Terrapagos Cloth, at just 4.1%. The only other surprise, Archaludon EX as the 3rd most represented. It comes fresh off the back of a Champions League victory in Japan not too long ago, and also because we saw high levels of representation in Europe previously. With Terrapagos Cloth rounding out the top 6 as mentioned, we look at the best of the rest decks of similar percentages. The only other big shock is the percentage of players piloting that Golden Go EX, a surprise selection by one of the best testing groups currently in the game. More on that later. 360 players made it through Day 2, which was 10% of the field, and the top decks remained mostly the same, except for Lugia's decline out of the top 6 most represented, and Golden Go EX taking its spot after a massive jump with a 23% conversion rate, with 30 players piloting it in Day 2. The best of the rest decks that were represented in Day 2 just make up the rest of the numbers, with Snorlax moving up to 4.2% of the field from a prior sub 3%, and Gouging Fire EX also makes an appearance. Whilst I was out on the field as well, there were a couple of other decks in Day 2 that was also a surprise that we wouldn't have expected. A couple of Ancient Box had made it through, and we even saw a Hydreigon EX out in the fields. Before we move along any further, let's also take a look at the Senior and the Juniors meta breakdown. Almost identical to the Masters division, we saw the Seniors breakdown, where we had the pre-talk Big Three taking the top spots as the most represented decks, with Dragapult way out in front being the only one in double digits. Always far more interesting though, the Juniors here looking like they stick with some of the more tried and tested decks that they've been piloting for some time. Dragapult at the top is no surprise, but two really do stand out here. Raging Bolt EX in the 2nd most represented decks, above 12%, and Charizard Pidgeot still making the front page with a 7.1% representation. And we all know in the right pockets of the meta, both can actually find themselves going far. Well, how did it all pan out? at EUIC? Well, we had some insane stream matches, and I'll just cover a few of them as I just highlight exactly what we did show on screen as well. In round 2, we had a clash of the 2025 regional champions, with Caleb Gadamer's Miraidon prevailing against Henry Chow's Golden Goal EX. Well, from that, 2 massive surprises just in this round alone, with the first sight of the Golden Goal EX deck, which many of the top players have come together to play, and Henry not actually piloting Gardevoir EX. In round 7, we saw a deck I don't think anyone had on their radar in 2025, Hisuian Zoroark V-Star making an appearance, piloted by Andrew Emerson. And round 8 was a massive highlight, with Stefan Ivanov's Gardevoir against Natalie Miller's Dragapult EX. Natalie had previously made top 8 at the same NAIC in 2024 that Stefan was looking to make it a three-peat, so it was a true clash of titans here, and Natalie was the one who came out on top. Heading into day 2 Swiss rounds, we were really beginning to narrow the field leading into Championship Sunday, with a couple of really notable matches that were featured on stream. Ryuki Okada, an EU regional champion already this season from Japan, opened the show with a dominating performance with Terapagos Cloth against Lucas Singh, where we saw once again that Golden Go EX deck. The other highlight before Top Cut has to be Vinny Fernandez's Dragapult Monkey Dory deck, where in Game 2, Hermione's Lost Box deck was just truly and utterly dominated by that little seedling, Badu. From 3,361 Masters to 360 into day 2, we ended up with a clean top 8 cut after 14 Swiss rounds of play, which lined up like this: 1 Golden Go EX, 3 Dragapult variants, 2 Snorlax, 1 Archaludon EX, and 1 Terapagos Cloth. It was a massive weekend for Golden Go EX, with Xander Perot going undefeated into top cut, and there were so many other impressive finishes as well by the same testing group. The 2 unique Snorlaxes making top cut was a surprise to many, but it's one of those decks that always needs to be respected. Even more so when the 2 builds were very different. Of the 3 Dragapult decks, it was Vinny's that we did see on stream in the day 2 Swiss rounds, which stands out with its more unique sort of slower approach. James Cox and Natalie piloting the more standard Dusknoir builds, which we also saw showcased. Rounding off by Ryuki Okada's Terapagos Cloth deck, and also Simone's Archaludon EX deck, which was both also shown in feature matches in day 2. 2 top 8 matches were showcased where we saw Xander continue his undefeated run, taking down James Cox's Dragapult EX deck, and Natalie Miller putting on a show against Rone's Snorlax deck. In top 4, however, Xander met Ryuki, who once again, as a repeat of that round 10 stream match, showcased just how much of a dominating matchup it is for Terapagos Cloth, using Poison as the difference maker. Natalie then also charged into the final, having defeated Simone's Archaludon EX deck. With top 4 locking up direct invites to Worlds, Ryuki actually joins Henry Chow as a 2-time direct invitee. After 2 days of grueling play, we do end up at Championship Sunday for these international championships. And it was the juniors division where we kicked things off in the TCG, where Oliver Cahill became the UK's first ever EUIC champion with his Lugia V-Star deck, having beaten Andreas Catel's Dragapult Dusknoir. In the seniors division, 2 very familiar faces at the very top level who regularly appear in finals. We saw Gabriel Fernandez versus Nathan Osterkatz. The Dragapult Monkey Dory deck piloted by Gabriel, also seen piloted by his brother Vinny previously in the stream, had to come from behind to win EUIC 2025 in the seniors division. It was a true back and forth matchup that was initially in Nathan's favour due to some unfortunate prizes in Game 1, but Games 2 and 3 really showcased how Gabriel's deck was built in anticipation of that mirror match. And finally, we do come to the Masters Division Finals. The crowd was incredible, with backing for both our massive stars, Ryuki Okada of Japan and Natalie Miller of Australia. It was just unfortunate that the final lasted just over 25 minutes. In Game 1, a rough first turn with a lone Pheasantipity EX from Natalie gave Ryuki the opportunity to just collect those combo pieces and deliver a turn 1 knockout with Cloth due to the weakness on Serendipity. Game 2, we finally saw a true game, a real back and forth where we just saw how devastating Dragapult EX can really be. In combination with Dusknoir, we saw a multi-prize turn KO, which provided a route to victory for Natalie, which allowed her to level the series. But it was in Game 3 where Ryuki did opt to go first. Both our players had started shuffling their decks, and you can see on their faces both were praying for the right things to fall in order. However, for Natalie, she could only start with a lone 70 HP Dreepy, staring down at Ryuki's best starter in the deck, especially to hit those combos, Oranguru V.
This is big. Hisuian Heavy Ball allowing to check all those prizes. One of your best starters in Ryuki's deck in this scenario is actually having access to back order. This could be a massive turn, Ross.
Forest Seal Stone comes out straight away. Obviously, that Ancient Booster Energy Capsule coming out as well. You're going to need that. Those are the obvious choices for back order. And you get to put it straight onto Oranguru and then use it for, oh yeah, it's Precious Trolley, getting all of your basic Pokemon out. Whatever 5 basic Pokemon Ryuki wants to get on the board here are coming.
Here we go. Look at all the pieces.
And there we go. Ryuki is going to be your European International Champion 2025. He came to Dortmund, he won the whole thing, and now he's come to London and won the whole thing.
Wow.
Well, what next? It was Vancouver, which marks our return to the regional championships, and it's over to North America with just under 2 weeks to see how EUIC will shake up the metagame for the final tournaments in this format before rotation hits. Thank you so much everyone for tuning in. What did you think of EUIC 2025? Whether you were there in person or perhaps watching it from home, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG updates and hopefully more Pokemon recaps as well. Vancouver Regionals will be coming out later this week. Thank you very much.